who was in the working band with Stan when Holland recommended you? Who else was in the group?
Well, let's see. I think Richie Byrack had just left.
Okay.
So I think it was Albert Daly was the piano player when I joined.
Sure.
But different piano players joined. You know, Chick had left before Richie. So it was going to be those kind of piano players with those kind of sensibilities. On the other hand, Stan was such a brilliant storyteller. He was almost like a pop singer himself, just naturally. He was very impressive. As a ballad, as a standard storyteller. So he was a good lyricist in his playing.
I
did.
Very
lyrical.
Yeah, I did.
So anybody who played with him would have to be a knowledgeable accompanist. So after that, it was Joanne Brackeen and then Kenny Barrett.
Wow. Okay, so that's fat. So the idea, because a lot of his solos, especially ballads, would go on for long periods of time. So you really had to know how to fill in as an accompanist and continue to color the story.
Yeah, but some of his ballads were like the Brazilian ballad, like the Antonio Carlos, Joe Bean was also,
Right.
So I think I was hired because I could play, relate to the Brazilian, the bossa nova and the samba, things like that. And then and there was another piano player in the band named Andy Laverne, and he definitely could do that also. He was very good at that.
How did you did you go up to the Gershwin mansion to try out? How did that all work? Was it just, because I've heard other cats, he... Well,
I definitely went up there, supposedly to rehearse.
Yeah, right.
But, it was a nice place to go. It was a beautiful structure, and it had great sound. He had a room there that had this almost perfect sound that Gershwin had designed for perfect sound, with perfect sound. So it was fun to do that, and Stan just liked to play. He was a great player, and he liked to play. So he would have us come up there to play. It was supposed to be a rehearsal, but he also wanted to play. And he wanted to play with different people. He wanted to try out different people. So, it depending on the mood you were in at the time, it could be a lot of fun. But it was a long drive.
How far from the city? How far was it? I was in Rye, New York, or something like that. It was in Westchester.
Yeah. It was about a 45-minute drive.
Right, with traffic, that can get a little bit onerous, I guess.
Oh man. Yeah, because I lived in New Jersey.
Oh, you lived in Jersey, because that makes it even harder.
Right.
So, could you talk? You've worked with, you've been a band leader yourself. You've worked with a lot of cats, luminary cats. But could you talk about Stan's leadership style on the bandstand? What did he do it? How did he communicate with you guys on the bandstand?
Well, that's where it gets interesting for me, and again, I can't speak for everybody else, because by the time I joined Stan, he wasn't just a star; he was a superstar. In every sense of the word. Because you know what the Grammys are.
Sure.
So you have the Grammys, and it's supposed to be the top, the top music of the year, or voted the top music of the year, and so you have all these different categories. You have the European Classical Grammys. You got the pop Grammys, or the heavy metal Grammys, or the whatever. Anyway, you got all these. But the main Grammy thing is the top song seller of the year.
Sure.
The main ones.
Right.
And so there have only been 2 instrumentals in the whole history of the Grammys to win the top Grammy. And for a long time it was only one. And that one was Stan Getz for the Brazilian music.
What tune was it?
Huh?
What tune was it?
Well, I guess it must have been Girl from Ipanema.
Okay, so for a long time, the only instrumental tune that won a Grammy was Stan Getz.
Yeah.
Wow. So
it was bigger. It was bigger than a jazz Grammy. It was the Grammy. It was the music Grammy of the year. It was the pop Grammy. It was the #1, hit of
right.
the
It
year.
crossed over into pop. I mean, it was popular.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Right. So he was. I mean, So I'm just gonna before I don't want to pull you too far ahead, but it's like he had reached a superstar level. So how did that how did that change the atmosphere? What was it more of a greatest hits show? Was he talking to the audience a lot? I mean,
it could have been that.
Yeah.
If he wasn't such a dedicated jazz musician.
Uh-huh.
He was really dedicated to the tradition. It was almost like it had happened to him by accident or something. Because
you mean winning the Grammy is an accident?
That whole situation.
Sure.
In other words, it wasn't something he was planning to do. A lot of people, I feel, that invest their careers into pop music are actually hoping for some major commercial success. I don't think Stan was looking for a commercial success, at least not on that level.
Absolutely. And you know better than anybody, when you're not looking for it, that's when it comes to you, whether you want it or not. So it was never a natural. It was natural, but it was never a premeditated thing.
Right. Well, in his case, I don't think it was.
Right.
Anyway, and plus he was already very popular as a jazz musician anyway. Because he was great. He's one of the great improvisers out of the Lester Young school of music. Lester Young, Charlie Parker style of modern jazz. He was one of the top players, of that style. Really one of the top. One of the 4 or 5 top players. Period. So to work for him, he had a lot of information that he could impart or demand, depending on how you looked at it, that would keep that presentation acute or articulate.
Can you give an example?
Well, as a really young kid, he had played with the Jack Teagarden band.
Yeah.
So that's some history that a lot of kids didn't get a chance to get, because he came on the scene when supposedly a lot of the more professional musicians were in the Army.